Good morning. I know that many of you in this room today are new to the Board of Directors meeting, so a hearty welcome and thank you for your service. And it's truly a pleasure to see, again, many others who have served this union for years and even decades, and we saw some of these as I introduced them. So thank you for your service as well. So whether this is your first meeting or your 10th, we all recognize that the actions taken by this Board of Directors meeting will make history, just as our union makes history every single day. As ALPA's president, I have been honored to lead this union as we have accomplished what many thought to be impossible over the past 4 years. There was a lot at stake. Beginning on January the 1st of 2019, and more than ever today, our fight has been for what is right and for what is fair, and most importantly, for what is safe. Because working together, we persevered through a government shutdown, the grounding and return to service of the 737 MAX, and a global pandemic that was unprecedented in its effects on public health and the very viability of the airline industry. And despite all of this, ALPA pilots did what they always do. They stayed on course. We stood together. We did what needed to be done. Our union has supported its pilots at the bargaining table in new and enterprising ways. We have expanded our union's ranks and advanced the labor movement around the world. We have enhanced our member resources and made them available not to just some, but to all ALPA pilots. And at the same time, we've advanced our pilots' goals in aviation safety, security, pilot assistance, and jump seating. In other words, folks, we promised and we delivered. For example, a promise was made at the beginning of this administration that the economic and quality of life floor would be raised across this union. We said that the smallest voice would be equally as important as the largest voice. At the outset, we reestablished the joint standing committees to build our union's connectivity. And we worked to create fertile ground for MECs to achieve the contract gains that their pilots have earned, with some reaching as high as 137% pay increases. Folks, in the fee for departure world, regional pilots, it's been a challenge as the entry point into the profession, as you all know. This is the first time in history of the Airline Pilots Association where we've seen these types of things. We said going into COVID that while there would be challenges, that coming out, if we stuck together, there would be opportunities, and you're seeing them. So just as I pledged during my campaign for president 4 years ago, we have supported ALPA pilots from recruitment through their careers and now all the way through retirement. Yes, through retirement. Because when you're part of this great union and you hit the magic age that I just hit, you just don't hang it up. This is what you are. This is what you've done. This is your profession. This is your love. This is everything. We're family. So now, with the help of my national officers, we've put processes in place to help our retired members. Now, our work included backing every one of our pilot groups every single time they went to the bargaining table. And I kept reminding everybody that, in my view, I know where we are. You know where we are in history. You take a look at the moment where you're serving right now and what we just experienced 4 years from now, and the leverage that you've seen right now. So if you could not tell me what a better time than right now, would you agree there's a window of opportunity here? You know? I mean, I don't know if it gets any better than that. So to me, you know, Here's what I know. During the pandemic, our national union supported MECs in negotiating nearly, are you ready? 250 agreements to respond to the economic environment, protect pilot health and financial security, and mitigate potential pilot furloughs. If we didn't do that, many people would not be in this room with us here today. Now, we've marshaled resources to support our pilot groups in negotiating a fair share of their successes as demand for flying has returned. Late notice, payment overdue for services rendered. All right? In every sector of the industry, our union has backed its pilot groups with the full weight of this union in analyzing industry's economics, performing strategic planning, conducting road shows, carrying out informational picketing, engaging in advertising campaigns, and creating online resources for you. By working together in unity, we have forged opportunities and made unbelievable progress that no one could have envisioned during those early dark days of the pandemic when you all went to work. Your pilots went to work unsure of what this thing even was, put themselves in jeopardy, their families in jeopardy. And newsflash again. And now we're offering pilot peer support as well as HIMSS resources for our members who are retired. So we didn't only just meet the needs of our present-day members, but also our retirees as well, because they're a treasured resource. And the connectivity that will happen with pilot peer support will be stabilizing for them. And we're going to train them. We're going to train them as pilot peer support volunteers and people who were in the HIMSS program, and all of a sudden one day they stop. We're going to give them the assistance that they need. So together, we've delivered on my administration's pledge to support all members equally from recruitment through retirement. We promised and we delivered. Now, we've also expanded and strengthened our union during the industry's worst downturn in history. We've welcomed 12 new pilot groups into ALPA's ranks since 2019, and we reduced ALPA's members' dues rate while remaining fully prepared to marshal the resources needed to represent our line pilots. Joseph Genovese, thank you for keeping us on course. Boy, because I tell you, when we went into COVID, he tightened the belt. He really did, and it made all the difference in the world. We are now stronger than ever from a resource standpoint and a membership standpoint. Thank you, Joseph, for having the foresight to see that. Now, we've also advocated ALPA's pilot partisan agenda and broken records in our outreach. During the pandemic, we worked to preserve jobs, prevent furloughs, stabilize the economy by lobbying U.S. and Canadian governments for economic aid directly benefiting airline workers. Now, there was a difference of what happened here in the United States with our brothers and sisters in Canada who suffered harder. It was harder for them. And they did not have an airline-specific aid program similar to what we had here in the United States. And as a result, there were furloughs, right? And I always ask this question. I've asked this to the board, and I'll ask you. Does anybody have these rhetoricals, because we're in a big room here, but does anybody realize why, perhaps, we were able to do that here in the United States and not in Canada? And I'll tell you, since it's a rhetorical question. It's our PAC. It's our PAC. The PAC makes the difference. The PAC gives us access. It doesn't guarantee an outcome, but it gives us access. Because I always say there was a reason why I had senators calling me day and night. Elizabeth Baker, our GA director, an extraordinary job, energized money, working 24/7 during the PSP stuff. But those people were calling me not because I have a nice smile or a great personality, which I do, but I'm just saying, that's not why. It was the access that we were granted. But through a Herculean effort, we secured $63 billion in economic relief for our industry in the United States through 3 pro-worker, historically 3, this was history, pro-worker federal aid packages. Nothing like it had ever been done before. We were in that moment, you know, when the engine popped and the firelight came on, and we performed. Now, compare that with what happened following 9/11, where there were 50 bankruptcies and $85 billion in givebacks, including the loss, and this is sad, because this was not just our workers, but all workers, the loss of retirement security for many. DB plans went away for many workers in America. Really, I don't know how we bought off on all that. I'll be honest with you, I think it destroyed the retirement security of American workers. Now, this game-changing success was driven by nearly 250,000 individuals speaking with one voice. As proud constituents of the House of Labor, ALPA pilots guided other AFL union members, as well as the flying and shipping public, in compelling lawmakers to support workers during some of the darkest days of our history. And I'm telling you, you know, I really doubled down on the AFL-CIO. You know, when you're getting $63 billion and a teacher's sitting next to you and is getting that, okay? But they back you because they understand that you provide a service to this country and that your work would help mitigate the effects of this pandemic and not make it a protracted level of pain, that's an amazing achievement. That's an amazing achievement. So, again, we secured not 1, not 2, but 3 historic aid packages for our industry. The result saved hundreds of thousands of really good aviation jobs, including tens of thousands of airline pilot jobs. I'm going to say it again. Many people in this room would not be here today. Your airlines wouldn't look like they do. They were ready to restructure immediately. Now, this history-making effort was a triumph for pilots, aviation workers, and once again, all workers. We led. Now, since January, can you tell them I'm kind of excited about that? I mean, it really was historic. Since January 1st, 2019, ALPA's calls to action have sent nearly 1 million messages to policymakers to promote our union's pilot partisan agenda. Did you hear that? 1 million messages. That's what we did. And more. Now, our union, when I say we, I'm talking us, right? Okay. Our union also established, this is great, this was genius. Executive Council, thank you so much for all this. ALPA Capitol Hill, our flagship presence in Washington, D.C., where we've already hosted more than 100 members of Congress to inform them about our pilots' priorities. How many people have seen that building yet? Give me, oh man, I didn't mean to say man. You have to see this building. It is a short walk from the Cannon Building. You walk out of the Congress House and you're there, and many of our representatives do. So, and thanks to the commitment of ALPA leaders and members alike, ALPA PAC is once again growing, which is extremely important as we prepare for future threats and challenges. Remember, the early retirements put a little hit, right? Because these are your highest paid individuals, and obviously that affected some of the PAC receipts, but we're seeing it coming back. I think people realize what I just said for the last 15 minutes and realize how essential it is to our success, all right? Regardless of how you feel about it, we didn't make the rules, but we have to participate and play, right? So thanks to our union's air safety organization, let's talk about safety now, all right? We have also thwarted attacks on laws we fought so hard to enact. And I'll use the phrase you all know. These are laws that were written in blood, literally written in blood, and advance aviation safety to the highest degree ever in the world. We have the best safety record here in the United States in the world, all right? Through ALPA's direct advocacy on Capitol Hill, along with paid and earned advertising campaigns, we've affirmed that the United States has more than enough pilots to meet current demand. I won't use the PS word, I won't use it because I know for a fact how many pilots we make every year. And I know how many pilots are being hired. Thank you. Where's Paul Ryder? Paul Ryder, where are you? Where are you? Oh, there he is right there. That is a world-renowned pilot supply, expert. Any questions you have on pilot supply, ask that gentleman right there. When we meet at panels and he shows up, they look at their shoes because they know they're going to hear the truth. Now, we've called out airlines that received American taxpayer economic aid, American taxpayer money, that includes us, and then failed to train and requalify pilots to support the return to flying. We did what we had to do, but many of them didn't do what they had to do. And we've prevailed in fighting off attempts to evade first officer qualification and training requirements by individual airlines like Republic Airways, who came up with the idea to try to emulate military flight training. Good luck with that. Didn't work, by the way. It's already been shot down, all right? How'd that get shot down, by the way? If we didn't shoot it down, who would have done it? Who would have done it? Who would have stood up to say, no, that doesn't make sense? Only the Airline Pilots Association. So drawing on ALPA's history of collaborative work with Boeing, and we do have a great relationship with them, we've helped improve safety and ensure the safe return of the 737 MAX. We also garnered passage, we worked on this together, of the Bipartisan Aircraft Certification Reform and Accountability Act to put in place critical reforms needed to ensure that pilots are an integral part of the certification process. Who'd have thought that that wasn't a good idea, right? I mean, not asking the people who operate the airplanes. But anyway, so another threat, in addition to our union having to deal with these kinds of issues, we've also tried to protect our industry and aviation from 5G interference in the United States and Canada. Because of an ALPA-supported coalition, wireless companies pledged to continue voluntary restrictions and provide additional time for airlines to install new radio alternatives that are not vulnerable to 5G interference. And Bob, I know you have worked tirelessly on this issue, and I thank you for that. I can't imagine how many hours you have spent on this. Now, ALPA's work in the freight sector, right, has reached new levels since April of 2021, when we established our continuing cargo committee. Now, some of you may recall that the cargo committee was formerly a presidential committee for a long, long time, ever since FedEx came into ALPA. Now, however, I felt that the time had come, and the executive board agreed with this assumption, this assessment, that it was time for the committee to go more mainstream, and so we felt it was really going to be important because we wanted to include passenger pilots into the committee, because we all move cargo, right? We all fly cargo of one sort or another. You're filling your bellies, and if you want to, I don't like to refer to passengers as cargo, but it's cargo, right? So now it's mainstream, and there's a huge amount of participation, so it's really been great. And Rich Huey, thank you so much for your leadership on that committee. So now the committee's membership reflects many airlines that operate passenger and all cargo flights, as well as combination operations, which we have some. So together, our pilots are reinforcing the critical importance of ALPA's goal of achieving one level of safety and security across the air transportation system. And we're continuing our commitment to close the gap on the myriad of deficiencies that exist between cargo and passenger flight operations, because there's a lot of differences. All right, now let's talk about NextGen. As a member of the FAA's NextGen Advisory Committee, I made clear our union's serious concerns about pilots being forced to use ad hoc, non-precision procedures to fly RNAV instrument approaches because of inadequately equipped aircraft. The current standard is to have two precision approaches, all right? Maybe an ILS and RNAV. Problem is, all our aircraft cannot fly RNAV with, fully down to RNAV mins coupled. Right? The equipment isn't there. So in an effort to artificially boost throughput into the airports, someone came up with the idea of, we'll just let them fly non-precision approaches. So when they fly a non-precision approach on a closely spaced parallel operation, unacceptable, we told them it was unacceptable, and I told them that I wouldn't allow the pilots to do that. I would ask the pilots not to do it. They got it. So now, On this broader next-gen issue, the FAA also accepted ALPA's offer of assistance from our union's airport safety liaisons. These people are volunteers that go out and make contact with airport managers around the United States and Canada, and really are conduit back and forth for information to those managers. And it's really it's an incredible program, and it's a great place to get into work in safety if you're interested. Some of your members are interested. But in this specific case, they've been very helpful in addressing community-level environmental noise concerns associated with next-gen arrivals and departures, because remember, they're much more precise now, so the noise is very concentrated. But they've been helping with that community outreach. Now, ALPA also urged FAA's Advanced Aviation Advisory Committee, that's a fancy name for the old drone committee, right? But now, since it constitutes advanced air mobility, it's changed the name, to create a safety culture task group. I'm on that group too. We created that safety culture task. They were so busy doing their work, and I said, does anybody want to know why we have such a safe record here in aviation? It's because of these safety action programs. So everybody got on board, and it was ALPA that made that happen. So we now have a safety culture task group. And once it was established, ALPA kept up the pressure by recommending a list of 6 safety tenets to serve as the guiding principles of a safety culture within the UAS community. Now, a word about safe integration for a minute here. You know, we got a lot of users of the airspace, right? And thanks to our air safety organization, we've also marked progress in ensuring safe integration of UAS and commercial space activities in our national airspace, all right? In 2019, ALPA and the Commercial Spaceflight Federation issued a joint statement pledging to collaborate, and we did. And we have continued to partner to ensure that safety is at the forefront of everything that we do. I was recently appointed to also serve on the DOT's Commercial Space Transportation Advisory Committee. As you know, we've had many, many more launches, and it's not a matter of when we do integration, you know? I mean, we've got to do it, because the impact on our operations are, you know, ridiculous. So it's going to have to happen. But as a member, I'm going to continue to advance ALPA's work to facilitate safe integration based on enhanced data sharing among all users of the national airspace system through the creation of a comprehensive airspace integration strategy. So we're trying to avoid this segregation of airspace, yet all these committees that I just mentioned are doing their work in a segregated way. Didn't seem reasonable to me. Pull it together, shared mental model, right? And that's catching on, so that's a good thing. So given the comeback in international flying now, let's talk about that for a minute, ALPA's Remote Operations Committee work to enhance safety standards at diversion and emergency airports in remote locations is also extremely important. And Captain Black done just an amazing job in that committee. But we're making every effort to ensure that remote operations airports are adequately prepared to meet the needs of passengers and crew, regardless of the size of the aircraft or the weather conditions. We promised, and we delivered. Now, security. The dynamic forces that affect the security of flight today could have never been envisioned by our founding members. From military conflicts in other countries to the more than 2,000 unruly passenger incidents on U.S. flights that we've already seen take place this year alone. That means that ALPA's aviation security work, which is crucial, Wolfgang Koch, thank you for your leadership, Security Committee, and all your team, they continue to save lives. After years of delay, the FAA finally issued its proposed secondary flight deck barrier requirement for newly manufactured passenger aircraft. And while this was, I emphasize that for a moment, for a reason, and while an important step that would not have happened without our union's advocacy and the hard work of the gentleman to my left, ALPA continues to press for the requirement to retrofit existing passenger aircraft. There's a reason, because such a requirement is important because due to the FAA's delay in issuing the requirement for newly manufactured aircraft, guess what? Special interests took advantage of the rule, the delay, and thousands of aircraft have now been manufactured without a secondary flight deck barrier. Remember, they're going to be on the line probably for 30, 40 years. Well, we're going to fix that. ALPA's going to fix that. So, can't fool us twice. Relatedly, ALPA's held 2 in-flight security symposia since 2019 as part of our work to strengthen the Federal Flight Deck Duty Officer Program. Do you know that if you paid our FFDOs as law enforcement agencies, number one, is the largest federal security service out there, right? I mean, huh? One of the largest out there. But if you paid everybody, do you know, and you know that this doesn't cost really the government anything, it would be close to $1 billion a year. I mean, that's the sacrifice that these FFDOs are putting themselves in. Really, you know, these are the people that are going to step forward and put themselves in the way of evil. And we fought for millions of dollars of additional funding to support FFDOs, including addressing the current training backlogs, because there's a lot of backlogs right now of people that want to get into the program, right, but can't because of the finance. Now, my administration also highlighted the important safety and security role played by jump seating crew members. Jump seating is not only about jump seating, folks. We put a priority on enhancing access to jump seats and designed and released, and this was, I tried to get this done when I was first VP, couldn't get it done, but the Flight Finder jump seat tool, because I knew, you know, the first thing you do when you come off the airplane, you turn this thing on, right? But you have to, there has to be a reason for you to want to come to the ALPA app. Well, we figured that one out. All right, we figured it out. Now that we have everybody's attention, we're providing another service to our members. This one-of-a-kind resources has attracted users to perform more than 2 million in that short time, 2 million searches to date, a historic step forward in serving our members and for the jump seating and piloting command authority. Jump seats is related to piloting command authority. No, because we all recognize piloting command authority is the basis upon which we rightfully assert that we are the last arbiters of safety. Piloting command authority, right? We don't push back. The airplane does not push back until it's safe to push back. Now, this authority then is our shield and our last line of defense. That's why we protect it so vehemently. Now, we also took important steps in addressing the known crew member random selection issues that our pilots are experiencing online. I know that you're hearing from your members on this. And we're working on it with TSA. Now, in addition, our union's doing more than ever to ensure that pilots are mentally and physically prepared to perform their job. So, as a result of my participation on the FAA's Pilot Fitness Aviation Rulemaking Committee, following that horrible tragedy of Germanwings, we launched the Pilot Peer Support Program and made it accessible to all ALPA members in the United States and now in Canada as well. And we didn't stop there. We built on our launch momentum by holding the first ever Pilot Peer Support Symposium as part of our Air Safety Forum this year. That was a great idea, Bob. It was a great idea. And if you haven't already, I encourage you to attend an ALPA Air Safety Forum. I guarantee you it will change how you think about this union and why I ask you all to stand and recognize some of the people that do make these sacrifices, our volunteers. It's a tremendous opportunity to see our union volunteers in action as they interact with top industry and government policymakers. Now, at the same time, ALPA is continuing to ensure fair competition for U.S. and Canadian pilots. Canada has some real unique challenges in this area, and they need our help. Thanks to more than 9,000 messages that you and other pilots, ALPA pilots, have sent to Congress through our calls to action, we continue to attract co-sponsors for the bipartisan House Transportation and Infrastructure's Committee to advance the Fair and Open Skies Act. I mean, protecting against unfair competition is one of our biggest challenges. But we've been successful because if the Fair and Open Skies Act here in the U.S. is passed, it will require the Department of Transportation to consider labor standards on U.S. workers when it decides whether to allow foreign airlines to fly to the United States. We were the first administration to be successful. Wizz Air. You all know about Wizz Air? All right, we'll talk about it later, but DOT refused to give them access into the United States due to the heavy-duty anti-union activity that they're involved in. We made that happen. It was ALPA that made that happen. Now, we've worked in a similar vein to advocate directly to the Canadian government to oppose the use of foreign pilots on Canadian flight deck. They have a serious problem with that, and as well as other challenges, really, that involve various portions of the government that impact, their ability of the airlines to remain competitive and to protect our workers, which is first and foremost what we do. So, now a moment, I want to tell you about PDG here for the Professional Development Group. As all of you know, no one is more committed than ALPA to creating a strong pipeline for pilots in the future. I created the President's Committee for Diversity and Inclusion to complement the work being done by ALPA's Professional Development Group, led by the gentleman to my right, Bill Couette, to foster an accessible, affordable, and inclusive airline piloting profession while maintaining the first officer qualification and training requirements that have reduced passenger fatalities by 99.8% here in the United States. In 1997, when the Commercial Air Aviation Safety Team began its efforts of data collection because of a serious number of accidents, it began to create safety enhancements, and they were good, right? It happened because they knew the growth of the industry was going to keep going, and the fatality rate was way too high. So they started this effort, and it was really amazing. It was an amazing effort. However, it took that last accident, there were 4 accidents, but culminating in Colgan, right, the Colgan accident, for us to look at ourselves, and together with fatigue and training requirements, combined with that work in commercial aviation, that's where we saw the precipitous drop. And that's why we defend having 2 well-trained pilots on the flight deck. It's really simple. I mean, that's an incredible fatality risk reduction. We made that. ALPA made that happen. Now, together, we've advanced ALPA's goal of inspiring individuals from all backgrounds and communities to see themselves as airline pilots. And we've conducted outreach through ALPA's ACE clubs and visits to students of all ages. They even have me going to grammar schools now to talk to grammar school children, right? Because that's the brain development time, right, of seeing unlimited possibilities. Now, and ALPA's also engaging in community and industry events. In fact, we're looking forward to hosting for the first time the National Gay Pilots Association Aviation Inclusion Summit in early November. So when I'm done with this, I do a panel and then I open that up. That's the first time. They asked if ALPA would be willing to host that, and we of course said yes. Now, globally, meanwhile, we've made key strides in leveling up ALPA's already strong global leadership. We've advanced progress at the International Civil Aviation Organization on ALPA's commitment to ensuring the highest possible global standards for airline pilot qualification and training. Our administration wrote a letter to the Secretary General of ICAO and asked for a global review of pilot training and qualification standards. So they responded, created the Personnel Training and Licensing Panel, of which we are participants. ALPA helped do that. Now, in fact, I reached out to Prime Minister. I've done a kind of little reach out to, made reach outs individually to countries as well that have more problems with safety culture issues. So I reached out to the Prime Minister of Pakistan and the CEO of Pakistani International Airlines to support communications with Pakistani Airline Pilots Association because they weren't recognizing them as true partners. And in a safety culture, that's kind of primary, right? Everybody has to kind of cooperate and see the same vision. And this was following, what compelled me to do this was following the tragic and preventable, I might add, accident involving Flight 8303 and reports of some of the pilot licensing issues that they were having. And ALPA continues to underscore the value of safety management systems and the importance of a strong safety culture for pilots and the air transportation in countries like India, Indonesia, and Malaysia. And we met with them when we were at ALPA conference. Bob set that all up. And had the FAA sit on it, too. Our union is also pursuing our important work at the international level and enhancing our partnership around the world, including those in Central and South America. Now, ALPA recently reaffirmed our long partnership with the Asociación Sindical de Pilotos Aviadores de México, the ASPA pilots who are here today with us. And the ASPA pilots' enthusiasm and commitment, and I'm going to bring a resolution here. We sat down, you know, ALPA has formed and established an intent to continue a relationship on 2 occasions. But we're going to take this a little bit to the next step. But they've hugely enthusiastic about a commitment to pilots working together across North America, the largest economy in the world between Canada, United States, and Mexico, foot stomper, right? That comes across loud and clear in this video, this solidarity video. So please turn your attention to the screens.
ASPA de México, la casa de todos los pilotos. La Asociación Internacional de Pilotos de Líneas Aéreas surgió en Estados Unidos con el objetivo de profesionalizar a los pilotos de este país y asegurar la calidad del transporte aéreo, agrupando a más de 65,000 pilotos en 40 aerolíneas estadounidenses y canadienses. Son el sindicato de pilotos más grande de todo el mundo. ALPA representa las opiniones de los pilotos ante los más altos niveles en la toma de decisiones para la industria aérea, incluido el Congreso y las agencias federales, y ha negociado cientos de contratos con aerolíneas. Desde 1931, ALPA ha crecido combatiendo las injusticias laborales y del sector aéreo. Hemos enfrentado muchos retos en común, como los cielos abiertos, cada uno en nuestros respectivos países. Pero lo más importante, compartimos el valor de la seguridad. La seguridad laboral, la seguridad de nuestras operaciones y la seguridad de saber que tenemos una asociación que nos respalda. De frente a los retos que están por venir, necesitamos tener grandes aliados, porque en ASPA estamos convencidos de que la unión de todos los pilotos nos hará más fuertes. Por eso hoy, en ASPA, anunciamos el inicio de una nueva era, junto con ALPA International. ASPA de México formará parte del bloque de pilotos más importante del mundo. ASPA is the home of every pilot in Mexico. Let's build together a home for every pilot in the world. Volemos más alto juntos. Let's fly higher together. Volontiers ensemble. ASPA de México, la casa de todos los pilotos.
ASPA gets it. Big round of applause. Now, the president of ASPA, Humberto Gual, I love the names, right? Jose Humberto Gual Angeles. I love it. He is, unfortunately, wanted to be here with us today. He could not be with us. And he's hugely supportive of everything that we're trying to do together. Because, you know, labor solidarity knows no boundaries, right? I mean, really, knows no international boundaries. If you don't think people are paying attention in our 3 governments of Canada, United States, and Mexico, knowing that we are doubling down on this right now, think again. This is the largest economy in the world, aside from China. All right, so, but he has a problem with the Aeromar pilots right now. They're getting a huge amount of pressure from their company and couldn't be here, but he sent his amazing team with us. And gentlemen, would you stand up, please? And Paco and Pascual, please stand up. Please give them a round of applause. I don't know what this means, but I see him do this all the time, so I'm going to do it. Thank you, gentlemen. I'm so excited about the possibilities here. Now, in these ways, our administration, with the support of a tremendous national officer team, executive administrator, national resource coordinator, and dedicated staff have delivered results in a fight for strong contracts and safe skies for our members. However, just as on the flight deck, success does not mean that we can become complacent, right? You know, as aviators, we can't do that. So serious threats remain, including efforts to allow reduced crew, single pilot, remotely piloted operations. I said, as my executive administrator calls it, being he's a Florida boy, so he calls it the closest alligator to the boat. And that is a big alligator, I might add. So, in response, I created the President's Committee on Reduced Crew Operations as a central point for our union-wide collaboration. The committee conducts its business based on the fundamental principle that having 2 well-trained pilots on the flight deck at all times is integral to the safety of the entire commercial airline system, aviation system. And our union, and I might say this, that FedEx, where's FedEx? Where are my brothers? All right, there you are. I think they have brought a resolution to make this committee go mainstream. It's only been a president's committee for a short time, but I think the importance is so, it's out there. You know, when you form a presidential committee, right, it reflects both internally and externally that this is one of the highest concerns of the president. But I think making it mainstream might be a great idea. But our union, we have to be vigilant at these types of attempts to weaken and roll back first officer qualification rules as well, because this all comes together. At ALPA's urging, the Department of Transportation recently denied Republic Airways' request to apply lower first officer qualifications that I was referring to before to its operation than the law requires, right? And now SkyWest Airlines, by the way, has put forth a plan to exploit a loophole in the law so that reduced pilot qualification and training requirements would apply to some of its small community services, right? Instead of the current higher standards. They filed to serve those smaller communities under 121, and now they were trying to get around some of to get more pilots at lower standards into the market by changing to 135, and we're going to fight that. So DOT must reject, and I'm not saying 135 pilots are not safe. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that the regulations create a higher bar. The DOT has to reject this. They must reject SkyWest's bid, and we're going to keep the pressure on. And any other effort to evade or undermine pilot qualification and training requirements, we're just going to fight that. So we're not going to let that happen. In addition, anti-union tactics by management continue to pose a pernicious threat. Following the pandemic, pilots around the world have witnessed the resumption of efforts by management to intimidate workers for seeking union representation, exercising their rights, and in some cases, and my international brothers and sisters will tell you, basic human rights in pursuing the dignity of work that comes with a collectively bargained contract. Too many of us have experienced such anti-worker behavior. Many of you in the audience, some of our new carriers right now are dealing with it constantly. In fact, every one of those 12 that weren't already existing unions before they came on and made a switch or had contracts, almost all of them really experienced it. So, I think there are many in this room who have experienced anti-worker behavior. And for that reason, our union created, I felt it was necessary, to talk to Representation Department and Legal Department, our ALPA Worker Protection Initiative. So, as we all recognize, the anti-union threat affects airline pilots and union workers around the world, from ALPA pilots who fly for Breeze and members of the Asociación Colombiana de Aviadores Civiles of Colombia, to the pilots at Ryanair. That's what's happening. So we're very proud to have here with us the Irish, I mentioned this before, the Irish Airline Pilots Association President, Captain Evan Cullen, who has fought tirelessly to achieve fair treatment of the Ryanair pilots. He's been sued by the CEO personally. That's the kind of attacks that he's... Evan, where are you? Where are you? Please talk to this gentleman when you see him and shake his hand, because he's going to fill you in on what he's been trying to deal with. Thank you, Evan. I mean, when I heard him speak at an IF-ALPA conference, I was like, okay, there's a labor leader. I mean, talk about standing up to pressure. As Captain Cullen and labor leaders around the world will tell you, ALPA must continue to prevail against such anti-union behavior. And he said to me just last night alone, we are key. We're the organization that is key to fighting that fight. So, now, in closing, I invite you to remember that when my administration took office 4 years ago, we said we would put the pilot back in the Airline Pilots Association International. We also promised accountability and to live up to the trust that you place in us as ALPA national officers. You know why? Because accountability, right, is central to maintaining trust. You're judging us, right, to make sure that we stay on track. We promised, and together with you, we delivered. So in your work as ALPA leaders, and by being present at this Board of Directors meeting here today, make no mistake about it, you are delivering on the promise of unionism. Because I've said this many times. After all, we are not U.S. or Canadian. We are not mainline or regional, passenger or cargo pilots. We are all ALPA pilots first and foremost. I have to do a little shout out to my wife, Lori, for being at my side. She's a hardcore union woman, chaired the negotiating committee over at the IPA. She was originally an ALPA pilot. She's a fatigue expert. She's been at my side. The times I've been away, I've been more than I've been in. I don't think, the only person that talks to her more may be Alicia and my executive administrator, I think, more so than me. But she's an amazing woman, and I thank her for her support. And my JetBlue daughter, who I don't see as much as I'd want to as well, I just want you all to know that it has been a distinct privilege and an honor to serve as your 11th president. And from my heart, I thank you for your support. Thank you.